everyone. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and I hope they have helped you. And I know some of you are revising for upcoming exams, so best of luck. And if you are watching and haven't subscribed, please do so, because that will help me to grow my channel. So today we will be looking at the higher tier. Okay, and again, that is Unit 2 Calculator, and that's the November 2021. So let's get started. Right, so as you know, higher tier and intermediate tier, they overlap certain topics. Okay, so question 1 until question 8 in this higher tier will be exactly the same as question 10 until question 17. So it kind of accordingly, so question 1 would be question 10, question 2 would be question 11, and so on. Because I have done a separate video on intermediate tier, so please go and have a look at the intermediate tier. I will put the link under the description for you, just so you can just click on it, and then I will start from question 9, I believe. Yeah, so we've done all that in intermediate tier until the factorized questions. So we will start from question 9 then. Okay. Question 9. In this question, you will be assessed on the quality of your organization, communication, and accuracy in writing. A circle with center O is shown below. The radius of the circle is 7.3 centimeters. Okay, so just label that, and that also 7.3 centimeters. Calculate the perimeter of the shaded region, and you must show all your working. Now, so again, OCW question is when you have to explain each of your calculations. And number 2, you would have to have appropriate units. Okay, so if it's a perimeter, we're talking about centimeters, we're talking about length, not the area, not the volume, for example. Right, so the perimeter is the distance outside of the shape. So you go all the way, which is the length of an arc, and then you have 2 radius. Okay, so if you think about the length of an arc, okay, so arc length, okay, that is always equal to a fraction of the circumference. Okay, so it's only a fraction of it, it's not the whole full circle, and that fraction is always equals to whatever your angle divided by 360 degrees. So think about when you've got 90 degrees, that would be a quarter. If you've got 180 degrees, that would be a half, isn't it? Because it's 90 degrees out of 360 degrees, or a half is 180 degrees divided by 360 degrees. So the way to do this here, so you just write down length of an arc, okay, equals to, and then just write down the angle, which is 212 divided by 360. So that's a fraction of the circumference, so you have to times it with the circumference of the circle. Now, circumference of the circle formula is pi d or 2 pi r, whichever way you want to use. So I will use the 2 pi r, so times 2 times pi times 7.3. Okay, put all of that in your calculator. So in my calculator, I got 27.017155. Okay, so the perimeter would just be that. Okay, I would just write all of that down. Add the 2 radius here. Okay, so 7.3 times 2, and that should give me 41.6 centimeters. All right. Question 10, A, you are given that y is inversely proportional to square root of x. So y equals to 65 when x equals to 51.84. Find an expression for y in terms of x. Now, this is directly proportional or inversely proportional question. And it's really straightforward if you know the method. They're always going to give you y and then x, so you can substitute back in. Okay, so y is inversely proportional to square root of x. It means it's actually proportional to 1 over square root of x. So directly proportional to 1 over square root of x. So think about, as your square root of x increases, your y actually decreases, and vice versa. Okay, and that means in terms of a factor, scale factor, y will be equal to, we call it k, okay, times 1 over square root of x, or it's the same as k divided by square root of x. Okay, so it's kind of the same thing. It's just instead of 1 over, you write k over, and that is an expression of y in terms of x. But we have to work out what is k. Okay, so we're going to substitute what you know. So your y now is 65, okay, and your x now is 51.84. All right, and just put that in your calculator. So if you put a square root of 51.84, you get 7.2, so k over 7.2, and then therefore your k is just going to be like when you solve equation, when x on the top, you do 7.2 times 65, okay, and that your k will be equals to 468, okay, and final step, okay, you would just do y equals to, now you know your k, which is 468, divided by square root of x, yeah, so don't forget the last step when you have to write down the final expression of y in terms of x once you got your k. Part B, use the expression you found part I to complete the following table. So again, it comes up all the time like this, okay? You've got a table, you've got x and y, you just have to work out the missing values. So to work out y is more straightforward than working x. You just substitute everything you have there. So y equal to 468 over square root of x, so with 468 over square root of 15.21. Okay, just put all of that in your calculator. So in my calculator, I got 120, and that would give you 1 mark for that. Now, to work out the missing value of x, where you know y, so let's substitute everything back in. So yours y is 78, and that equals to 468 divided by square root of x. So now you need to work out what x is, or what square root of x is. Okay, the way to solve the equation, the quick way is just swap them, basically. Just swap the 78 and x, okay? Now, if you want to do it properly as you solve the equation, you can times both sides by square root of x, okay? So this is a long way. And you've got 78 square root of x we equal to, that cancel each other out, is 468. And then square root of x would just be 468 divided by 78, okay? So it's the same thing as you swap the 78 and square root of x. And that would give you 6, okay? And so therefore, and your x is going to be equal to 6 squared, which is 36, okay? And that is your answer. B, it is known that C is directly proportional to the square of D, okay? So C is directly proportional to the square of D, which is D squared. What happens to C if D is double? Now, if D is going to be double, okay, which is 2D, and remember when you square the 2D, okay, you actually have 2 squared, which is 4, and then D squared. So instead of C is proportional or directly proportional to D squared, now it will be directly proportional to 4D squared, okay? It's going to multiply it by 4, okay? Because of the 2 squared. Okay, so it would be just this one here, okay? It can't be multiplied by 2, which is a lot of people probably gonna do that. It can't be divided by, because unless it's inversely proportional, that's when you divide, and also not divide, and also it's not going to be squared, okay? Question 11, the table below shows the value of D and the value of E. It also shows the degree of accuracy of each value, okay? So you got D equals 67 to nearest whole number. So whenever they say degree of accuracy or limits of accuracy, and they're telling you it's nearest to something, this is a topic called values, okay? Or limits of accuracy. Okay, so they're talking about upper bound or lower bound, that kind of thing. Okay, it does come up a lot often in Newsy, but it does come up in maths as well, especially calculator paper. Now, so use a formula. C is equal to D squared divided by E, and calculate the least possible value of C. So you want C going to be the minimum or the least value. That means your D, the top one, has to be the minimum, right? You want it to be the smallest possible divided by the biggest possible. Okay, so E max. So let's work out the D minimum, or that just means the lower bound of D, okay, which is nearest whole number. So you do 1 divided by 2, which is 0.5, remember that? And you just do 64, take away 0.5, and that would be 63.5, okay? Now, E max, okay, which is the upper bound of E. So 1 decimal place means 0.1 divided by 2, which is 0.05, and you're going to add it on, okay, because that is the upper bound. So 0.05, and that is 8.65. Okay, so now we're going to do is just substitute it in. So your C least possible value would be 63.5 squared divided by 8.65 squared, and put that in your calculator. In my calculator, I got 466.156094. Okay, and so on, 694. And I'm just going to round that to 166 then, yeah, or 0.16 perhaps, yeah, that would be fine. Question 12, the diagram shows a quadrilateral EDEFG, okay, and they've given you the angle, the size of DE and DG, and they're asking you to calculate the side of angle EFG. So this one here is the one that they're asking you. So let's call that X then. Okay, now, so if you see that there's a lot of different angles and sides again, it's got to do with cosine and sine rule, because this is a grade A star topic, and it's usually kind of the end of your paper, and it's not trigonometric question like SOHCAHTOA, because that has to be a right angle triangle. So now, the bit difficult is when to use sine rule and when to use cosine rule. So your cosine rule, remember your cosine rule is whenever you have an angle between, okay, of two sides. So cosine rule, yeah, is when you have three sides, okay, and you have to work out an angle, or you have two sides, okay, and an angle in between. Okay, so like this here, it's kind of in between the two sides. And the reason, because you're going to, that a little bit like a C there, and that is your A here and your B here, for example. So A and then your B and your C there. And you can use the formula then to work out the size C. Okay, so that's when you use cosine rule. So here you have to use cosine rule first. And the reason we're using that, because we're going to work out EG. And if you can work out EG, think about that triangle separately now. So if I just draw that triangle separately, okay, yeah, so that one there, E, G, F. If I know this one here, okay, and I also know this one here, and this one is opposite to the angle X that I need to know, okay, so that is that there. And I also know this one is 65, okay, so that is opposite to that one there, which is the side that I actually know, 6.4. Okay, so when you've got the opposite pair of angle and side, you're going to use sine rule for this one. Okay, so can you see when you use cosine rule and when you use sine rule? Cosine rule, 3 sides of 2 sides and angle between. Sine rule, when you have kind of a pair of angle and opposite side. Okay, so let's work out EG first, which is I label C there. Okay, so EG will be equal to C. Okay, now, so your formula saying is, okay, so C squared equals to A squared plus B squared. Take away 2AB times cos of C. Okay, so it will be cos of C. Now, so C squared will be equal to your A squared is 2.7 squared plus your B squared is 3.2 squared. Take away 2 times 2.7 times 3.2 cos of 79 degrees. Okay, and that is your C squared. Okay, and your C will just be the square root of all of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of that in my calculator. Okay, in one go. Okay, and that should give me a nice number for C. Okay, right, so let's do that then. So in my calculator, I got 3.77264105.9. Okay, and I can actually round that to 2 decimal places. Yeah, so 3.77 centimeters. Okay, now make sure in your calculator that actually when you press cos, is go with a bracket, and make sure you put the bracket, the other bracket as well. Okay, at the end, otherwise it will come up as an error. Right now, once you go up to this stage here, that is your C, so 3.77. Okay, now, so remember that we're talking about a pair, yeah, an angle and the opposite side, and an angle and the opposite side here. Okay, so we're going to use sine rule. So sine rule saying, so sine of that angle X, I'm going to try X, yeah, over the opposite side, which is 3.77, will be equal to sine of the other angle, which is 65 degrees, and divided by 6.4 of the side, the opposite side. Okay, and to solve it, all you got to do is sine X will be equal to sine 65 degrees over 6.4 times 3.77. Okay, and your X will be equal to, remember, like SOHCAHTOA, you should do the shift button and then you do the inverse of it. So what I'm going to write is the inverse of the whole thing here. Okay, so sine 65 over 6.4 times 3.77. And I'm going to put all of that into my calculator. So shift sine -1, and then that fraction, sine of 65 over 6.4 times 3.77. And remember that bracket after the 65 degrees, okay? And my X equals to 32.27 degrees in my calculator. Okay, so that is my final answer for EFG. Okay, so I'm just going to write EFG equal to 32.27. Okay. Question 13, simplify the following expression. So when you look at, you got kind of algebra, you got letters there in terms of a fraction, it has to be algebraic fraction. And I love this kind of question. I just love algebra, and it's just pure algebra. Then it's much easier than the kind of question when you have a lot of reasonings and numeracy and worded questions in there. So with this type of question, if you look at my factorizing videos, that will tell you how to factorize the difference between two squares, and also just common factorization. Why do we have to factorize? Because that's how you simplify. When you got a common factor, you can cancel each other out on top. So if you think about, if you've got like 2 times 3 over, say, 3 times 5, then you can actually simplify the 3. But if I have 2 plus 3 over 3 plus 5, if you do cancel out the 3, that would be wrong. You can't do that. Okay, so that's why we have to factorize so that we have the products of something. So let's try to factorize 6x squared minus 9x. I can take 3 out as a common factor, also x, okay, because 3x goes into both of them. I should have 2 left here and 2x minus 3, okay, and that is the top. Now the bottom, I got 4x squared minus 9. The first thing you can see, there's no common factor, so you can't actually take a common factor out. And you have to think about the difference between 2 squared, because you can see these numbers, they are squares number. Okay, so to do that, you're going to write 4x squared as 2x all squared, take away 9 as 3 squared. So the square root it. And why am I doing this? Because the formula is the difference between 2 squared, a squared, take away b squared would be a minus b times a plus b. Okay, so I would get 2x minus 3 times 2x plus 3. Okay, so that is my numerator. This is my denominator. I'm just going to put them together. Okay, I might just write down the question again so you know that we're doing that. Okay, so 3x times 2x minus 3 over 2x minus 3, 2x plus 3. Okay, and just cancel out the top, 2x minus 3. So I got 3x over 2x plus 3. And that should be your simplified fraction. Question 14. Triangle ABC is shown below. The length of AC is x minus 1 centimeters. The length of BC is 2x plus 3 centimeters. And the size of ACB is 30 degrees. The area of the triangle ABC is 6 centimeters squared. Show that 2x squared plus x minus 27 equals 0. Okay, now I give you a hint about the structure of the exams. In a calculator paper, you always going to expect, especially in higher tier, yeah, it's not in intermediate tier, cosine or sine rule question, okay? And it is kind of a grade A star topic again, so it will be kind of near the end of the paper. Okay, so when you come into this kind of question, when you see there's a different like size and then angle, you've got to think about the sine, cosine, trigonometry question, okay, but not the right angle triangle. It's not so katoa. Now, so one of the formula in the front page telling you the area, okay, of the triangle will be a half times A times B sine C. Now, remember, refer back to the front page, okay? And the good thing here is they actually label A, B, C for you. So your A is your opposite A here, okay? Your B is B here, and your C is C there. And they actually given you size C there, which is perfect, okay? Sometimes you got different label letters and it makes it a little bit harder and you have to write different kind of formula. For example, I have to write half of B times C times sine A, for example. But in this case here, you have everything you need, okay? So let's go just to substitute them in. So your A, which is 2x plus 3, okay? A is opposite of angle A. That's how they label it. So that will be a half times 2x plus 3 times B, which is x minus 1, and times sine of 30 degrees. Okay, now it's a calculator paper, so you can actually work out sine 30 degrees, which is a half in a calculator, and times a half here. So if I just write that down again, so a half times 2x plus 3 times x minus 1 times a half, and that would give you a quarter times this. Okay, so 2x plus 3 x minus 1. Now we're going to expand this double bracket. Okay, so I'm going to do it here because I don't actually have space there. Okay, separately. So to expand double bracket, you just multiply it out from 2x first, so 2x squared minus 2x, and then from 3 plus 3x minus 3, okay? And simplify the middle bit. So 2x squared plus x minus 3, okay? So that would be equal to a quarter times 2x squared plus x minus 3. Now, they're telling you the area equals to 6, so that is equal to 6. Yeah, so I'm going to do it next up here. Okay, so when you got up to here, all you got to do next is just multiply the 4 to the other side, so 6 times 4, okay? And then you've got 2x squared plus x minus 3. And that would be 24 equals to 2x squared plus x minus 3. And to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to write this way, okay? And then now I need a 0, like they've done there, on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to move the 24, okay? Take away 24 on both sides, and that becomes 0. So 2x squared plus x minus 27 equals 0. And I just show that, okay? So that proof there. Solve the equation 2x squared plus x minus 27 equals 0. You must use an algebraic method and show all your working. Give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. Now, if you think about quadratic equations, sometimes when you solve it, you have to factorize. But when they say 2 decimal places, you kind of know immediately this is to do with quadratic formula. Okay, it always comes up in calculator paper, so get prepared. Okay, if you're doing the exam in 2 weeks' time, it would definitely in your maths exam. It will never come in numeracy. It's a math only topic. Okay, so your formula saying your solution would be, okay, minus b plus or minus square root of b squared take away 4ac divided by 2a. Okay, so a, b, c will be the coefficients of the according terms, so like x squared and x. So let's write it down first. So your a here is 2, coefficient of x squared. Your b here is 1, okay, so the number in front of the x, which is 1, and your c here is minus 27. And remember that only apply to ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Okay, if it's not equal to 0, you need to manipulate and change it to equal 0 first. So let's just substitute that in, okay? So I always write that down. So x1 will be minus 1 plus square root of 1 squared, take away 4 times 2 times minus 27, okay? And that is divided by 2 times a, which is times 2, okay? And that will be minus 1 plus 1 plus 8 times 27, yeah, and over 4. And just put that in your calculator, okay? And in my calculator, I got 3.43, okay? And that is my x1. Your x2 will be equals to, so minus 1 plus, sorry, minus now, because we've done the plus, okay? Square root of the same, so 1 plus 8 times 27 over 4. And that put that in your calculator, and you should get minus 3.93. Here you go. So those are your answer, correct to 2 decimal places. Okay. Now C, evaluate the length of AC, and you must justify any decision that you make. So let's go back to length of AC. So your AC is x minus 1. Now, remember, your length has to be positive, so that won't work. So you have to say AC has to be positive, yeah? So x has to be 3.43, okay? And AC will be 3.43, take away 1, which is 2.43 centimeters. And that is your final answer. Question 15, the last one here now. The following diagram shows a sketch of the curve y equals fx. Okay, so you got a curve, okay? It's just a function, and it cuts the x-axis at minus 8 and cuts the y-axis at 3. In each of the following questions, the graph of y equals fx has been transformed. Circle the only possible equation with transformed curve. Now, what you can see here, you need to see what has happened. So your O curve is somewhere there. You can see clearly the 3 now gone down to 0. So it's affecting your y coordinates. It's affecting your y, not your x, because your x kind of stay the same. The graph literally just moved down 3 units, okay? So if it is affecting the y, it's affecting this literally just your fx outside, not the inside of x, because that is your y equals your fx. Okay, so what's happening here is you're moving down 3 units, so you just take away 3. Okay, so affecting the y, not the x. So that is your final answer. Okay, right, this is really a grade A stars topic. Okay, and if you want to have a really good grades, then this is something for you to challenge you. But even if you can't answer the whole question with only 3 marks, you can still get an A star. You don't need 100% to get an A star, okay? Right, so the next part B, circle the only possible equations of the transform curve, okay? So again, just remember your previous curve is something like this, isn't it? Something like that, yeah. Okay, so you got the 3 here and then got -8 there. So what's happening here is your y, okay, let's see, y equal fx, has become a negative, right? So again, it's affecting your y-axis or your y coordinates, then it has to be outside the bracket of x. So it will be this one here, y equals to -fx. So whatever your y, it has turned upside down, yeah? So your line symmetry here is your x-axis, okay? It's a reflection over the x-axis, but it will be minus f of x, okay? Right, not too hard there. You can just use your y coordinate and see what has happened to the graph. Next one, C. Okay, so they're telling you that your graph actually has transformed, and you can see, I mean, previously it was somewhere there with the -8, right? And now it moved to 2, okay? So what has happened is your x coordinates move 10 units, okay? The -8 to 2 with 10 units to the right. Now, so with the x, it's slightly different, okay? Whatever happens to the x, it will be opposite to what you think. So if it's going to the right 10 units, it's actually take away 10 units from x, okay? So that will be f of x minus 10, not f of x plus 10, not f of x plus 10 outside, it's f of x minus 10 inside the bracket. It's opposite to what you think. And the reason is, it's quite hard to explain, but the reason is basically you need 10 units back to get where it was. So say 2, you need to do 2 take away 10 to get back to the original -8. Okay, but that will be your final answer. All right.